So you're thinking your church might run a holiday club this year. Think about the reasons why you might want to do that. And when would be a good time? You need to not be clashing with other groups in the area because we're not in competition with the other churches. Maybe a whole week in summer, maybe just a few days, maybe a Christmas shopping day or a warm welcome. Think about who you'll include. Our resources have materials to help you extend your holiday club for young families, siblings, older helpers, maybe even a vintage messy church or intergenerational. Think about where you're going to hold it. Check that your inside venue is suitable and accessible, that you know where the first aid box is and that it's got something in it. Check about fire evacuation. Check the toilets are suitable for adults to be separate from children, if possible, that children can actually use them, that the water's not too hot. And of course do your risk assessment. We'll talk about this later, but before your holiday club and also during your holiday club, keep doing those risk assessments. What about outside? Children always love to be outside, but check that the area is accessible and has suitable surfaces. Think about how you'll stop children wandering off or others wandering in. What are you going to do about toilets and hand washing, and what will happen if it rains? Do a sweep at the beginning of every session for litter, needles, animal feces, etc. And do those risk assessments just like indoors, both before the event and constantly during. We're hoping we don't have another pandemic, but what about if you do a holiday club online? Maybe that's more practical. Think about consent forms and making sure that there's an adult monitoring what's going on. Take out the risk of your adults talking privately to children by disabling personal chat. Check what's visible and audible in the background, yourself and for the children. And maybe you'll need to deliver some craft bags in advance of the session, a good way of making contact outside the timing of your holiday club. Assemble and equip your team now. They need to be DBS checked and have references. You need to follow the safe recruitment guidelines. Do a risk assessment with your volunteers. Get to know them. Work to their strengths. Think about what training they need. They definitely should have some safeguarding training at the very least. Maybe behaviour and additional needs training. Do a prayer and reflection and a debrief and thanks for everything that they do. Don't let them go away unthanked. You may choose to have a welcomer. It's not a requirement, surprisingly, to have a first aider, but it's a very sensible thing to do. And if possible, have an additional needs advisor or behaviour support person who can give a little bit of extra time to individuals who need it and can give some advice if difficulties arise or if something is proving difficult for a child to access. Extremely important is, of course, safeguarding. There must be training, and a signed code of conduct is a good idea. Think about toilets, how you'll ensure safety and dignity for the child and the adults. How will you make sure they don't go home with somebody who shouldn't be picking them up, or nobody for that matter? Maybe a quiet area is important to you. Make sure the door is open and a second adult available. Record all accidents and incidents, no matter how small, and have one designated photographer, and try and avoid using mobile phones. Now go for your theme. Go for the wow factor. The minute children walk into the room, immerse them in the theme. Decorate your venue. Get into character. Maybe even wear costumes. Set up areas for teams to gather. You could theme your snacks, and we have some suggestions how you might do that. And have a themed activity ready for children as they arrive to stop that downtime when they're waiting for the others to get there and may get bored or get into some sort of mischief. Make sure you're well informed about individual needs. Encourage parents to be open and honest about how to ensure their child can access activities safely and appropriately. Ask the experts, maybe have some extra staff who have some training in additional needs. Or talk to URC children and youth about some training for your team. Have a quiet area with some sensory and calming activities where children can opt out or have some time out. And have some golden rules positively framed and a clear behaviour policy. There's lots of places that provide materials for holiday clubs, including Scripture Union and John Hardwick. We at the United Reformed Church provide several, one a year. Or why not write your own? Look at some examples and then use your own creativity. But don't be afraid to look at the materials provided by the United Reformed Church, which are free for anyone to use. So what does a typical session look like? You might start with an arrival activity and a warm-up. You'll gather together for some songs and a prayer and for a story or maybe even drama. Children love games, and it's good for at least one or two of the games to be on the theme to reinforce ideas. There'll be small group activities, craft, prayer, games maybe on the theme, and maybe even a themed snack time. Children always appreciate that. And as you recap, you'll lead into worship with songs and prayer. You're building relationships, so join in. Use open questions that help children explore rather than questions that need a right or wrong answer. And be willing to talk about your faith, and that includes your doubts and questions. Remember, the children come first. Save your adult chat for later. It's also good to remember that children can opt out if they choose to. And listen to them. What do they want next year? What might even need changing this year? Make sure they can share that with you. Here's a sneak preview of this year's materials. Do you remember the old photo albums hidden away in the attic? They hold such memories, and they're all about relationships. So what might God's old photo album tell us about God's relationship with us? What does it mean to be loved by God and to love God? So Snapshots has supporting materials. It has original songs written by Leo. And there's video material on YouTube or on request from the team to support you in delivering the material. There are reflections for the team members and leaders and appendices to adapt the material for different age groups. Maybe for the under 5s, the 11 to 14s who may be there as helpers. Maybe you want to run a vintage holiday club or messy church. And also you may want to adapt it for an intergenerational event. Snapshots is made up of 5 standalone sessions, and each session has clear instructions on what you might do and provides all the information you need, including pictures, to help you set up the session. It's very much a pick and mix. Do what fits best into the time available to you. It covers 5 different aspects of love, each linked with a Bible story, which is explored in a variety of ways. Then, to back up your holiday club, there's information from the URC on our downloads and resources page. There you'll find sample risk assessments and templates for filling in your own. You'll find all the registration forms and incident forms and a sample behaviour policy which may help you. You'll also find the information about safer recruitment which we mentioned earlier. Have a look at all of these resources and see what might be best for you and your setting. If our materials look enticing, we have 3 Holiday Club materials available for you to use now: Super Sleuths, Time Travellers and Snapshots. Following a request to produce our materials for holiday clubs a little earlier, we are already writing the next materials for 2024. It doesn't have a title yet, but it will follow the children and youth work theme of story, story, story. So all that is left is to ask God's blessing on you as you think about, plan, prepare and run your holiday club, bringing God's love to the children you serve.